I seem to have done it again. Come out totally misjudged when daylight is actually going to arrive. But continuing my hunt for the bridges of the River Brede, you might ask yourself, what am I doing at the pumping station? And that's a very good question. But it's all part of the story of the River Brede. And I'm probably about 2 miles west of Brede village itself now. But it's a good place to start and work my way back, because part of the history of the river is that in times past, and probably still, if the wells tap the river source itself, they've supplied water to the borough of Hastings. And this particular pumping station, I'm just trying to get a better angle here, but in about 1896, something like that, the Hastings Corporation decided that they needed a better supply of water, and they found that the Brede Valley over here, there was quite a good level of water in the water table, and so they contracted engineers to build a pumping station. The idea being they sunk 3 wells and they pumped the water out and sent it to a reservoir through a pipeline at Fairlight. Now, in order to pump that, they had to have pumps. And in 1899, a little 18-inch gauge tramway was constructed from a wharf near what is now Brede Bridge, and it came right over here, and it brought all the construction materials from the barges that moored at the Brede Wharf. And a locomotive building company called Bagnall supplied a little locomotive, I think it was from their Mercury class, and that bought all the building materials, and then after that it bought the supply of coal from the wharves. I'm standing in the wrong place. I don't know if you heard the sound of running water then. That was water of a different kind. That was a cow doing something. Only I can find you that, can't I? Yes, so the furthest building from here probably dates back to 1899. And the first 2 engines that were supplied were of a type known as the triple expansion. I have no idea exactly what that is, but I have a feeling that's a way of capturing the steam and recycling it under more intense pressure to make the engine more economic. That building is now Grade 2 listed, and it houses a little museum. As you can see, the sign there says steam engines closed. They usually open most weekends in the summer. One of the original buildings, I understand, has been knocked down, and the one that you see this side, I understand, is a replacement built in a similar style. One of the original engines is preserved in that museum. Also, there are various other engines and paraphernalia to do with the water supply industry, but the pumps here have been electric since 1964. The story of the little tramway is unusual in that the same locomotive was used from the beginning until the end. It literally fell apart in 1935, and for a couple of years I understand that horses were used to pull the wagons along from the wharves to bring the coal here until 1937, when I guess the original version of this roadway was built. and to this day they continue to supply water from the Brede Valley to the town of Hastings. But if you're around this way any time and you know that this little steam engine museum is open, believe me, it will probably be well worth a visit. Morning is coming, the cock is crowing. There's the offending cow. All very happily grazing. And I think it's time I moved on. Yes, Mr. Cockerel, I'm just going. I'm just working my way back into Brede itself now. But just paused here on the way. That's probably one of those beacons that they use for the millennium and any celebration, obviously since. And I'll show you where it sits in a moment, so you'll see that it's in a good place. But how about this? That's rather nice, isn't it? No idea what it is, but it's a place for the rabbits to shelter, I guess, underneath the bricks. But we are much higher up now than the pumping station, and I've just paused here because it's a good opportunity to show you the Brede Valley. The word Brede, I think I might have said in the Selscombe video, comes from the old word brada, meaning breadth. And I'll talk a little bit more about the valley itself a little later on. But at this point you can see how wide it is. There's Hastings in the far distance. Unfortunately the breeze is getting up with the light, and that's not such a good thing. I hope it doesn't interfere with the sound too much. But yeah, fancy living up here. What a view from your garden gate, eh? Good, isn't it? Well, I certainly didn't expect to find these cars parked here, and try not to focus on them too much. I've now arrived at the parish church of Brede, St George's, and parts of which date back, I'm told, to the 13th century, and though the main building that you see here is 14th century with additions in the 15th and 16th. And if I turn around slowly, you can see what a commanding view it would have if the morning was clear. Sadly, the morning is not clear. Now I can see a couple of oast houses over there. Let's see if we can use my zoom. There we are. I'm trying to work out why this zoom doesn't focus at distance like it used to. I can't work that out. But there's the oast houses. That will give you a clue that a lot of hops were grown in this area at one time, the same as over at Bodgham. Anyhow, I don't know if I can get into the churchyard, but we'll take a look. It looks like what became the new vicarage there. One of the main families that lived in this area, one of the most famous, was the Oxenbridge family. And probably the most famous of them was Sir Goddard Oxenbridge, whose, I don't know what you would call it, tomb, if you like, I suppose, is inside the church here. Huh. The family had Brede Place, which is about 1.5 miles in that direction, deep in the woodlands, not open to the public. And they had Brede Place for quite a while, but it became used, part of it, by the smugglers, and they began to tell stories about Sir Goddard in order to try and prevent people from wandering around the grounds. And oh, look at this. Makes you wonder where that goes, doesn't it? Because there were rumours that there was a long tunnel that the smugglers used from Brede Place to the church. And thereby hangs a tale, I suppose. But anyway, to get back to what I was saying, one of the tales, bearing in mind that Sir Goddard was a very, very pious man, and I think one of the reasons why he was knighted was for his work with the poor. It's a nice stained glass window up there. They began to spread rumours that he was a giant ogre. Now, he was a big man, there's no doubt about that. And he became known as the Child Eating Ogre of Brede, who had to have a child every day for one of his meals. So I think over a period of time people must have become a bit scared of it, though people who knew him obviously didn't believe a word of it, and that's why he was buried in the church here. But you know, these things kind of stick, and they were perpetuated over the next century or two when smuggling really took a hold here. It was said that no metal or anything like that could kill him. So the rumour goes that he was killed with a wooden saw on the Groaning Bridge inside Brede Place, with the children of East Sussex on one side of the saw and the children of West Sussex on the other. And they say you can see his blood to this day. Of course, what they refer to as blood is the reddy colour of the water because of the iron in it. But of course, in those days, a lot of people didn't know that. That's rather nice. I do like these old entrances to churches. I think they're... and the herringbone brickwork. Very nice indeed. But anyway, Sir Goddard buried in there, and we know now, of course, that he wasn't the evil person that the smugglers made him out, but an interesting legend nonetheless. Well, eventually Brede Place passed out of the hands of the Oxenbridge family and into the hands of the Fruins, who had it for about 2 centuries, and then over the years it began to deteriorate and was sold on yet again. Interesting to note, though, one of the Fruin girls was a cousin of Winston Churchill, and she has a sculpture also inside the church that I can't get into. But there was a disastrous fire there in, I think, 1979, and it was left as a burnt out shell. It has since been restored, but not at the hands of the Fruin family, and as I say, there is now no way that you can have access. It's privately owned, unless you know the people, of course. This is a memorial chair, and what a lovely view. Excuse me. Do you know, this morning had every promise of being a sunny morning, but once again the mist has descended. Excuse me. But there's a lovely view, look, over the Brede Valley. Right, move on. There is a mixture of old and new in Brede these days. That's an interesting building. I wonder when that dates from. I mean, the wall probably isn't that old, but the windows, I better not zoom in, had I? The windows and the style of chimney would suggest probably early 19th century maybe, with some modernisation work done since. Brede Court they call that. The building I'm looking for, I don't know if we're going to be able to see. I'm hoping we can, but so much growth here. No, not going to be able to get to it, I don't think. But there is a building over there, and I think it's the one behind that one. And it says National School 1872. And on my visit to Bangor, I spoke about the national schools and then the British schools. And the national school here was the first government school when all the kids had to attend. Nowadays, Brede School is actually at Broad Oak. The two parishes have been combined as one. So the school itself is now probably a mile and a half away, and that's been there for quite a while. I should know because I taught there on my teaching practice, and that was getting on for 50 years ago. This is now more a linear parish. It's on the main road between Hastings and Ashford, hence it's starting to get busy. But there's a nice typical Sussex weatherboarded building, and you'll find some of them here. As a ribbon development, various ages, and I'm not going to go too much further into the village because there's not that many interesting buildings and that to see. But there's a couple more I want to show you before I go back down to the bridge, which after all is the real subject of the filming. Well, here I am at the Red Lion, which is quite a well-known pub, and just taking a look at the other side of the church, because let's not get interrupted by any more vehicles. There is the tower. Oh, is that the time already? Good grief. How time flies when you're enjoying yourself. Nice little clock. As I say, it's 14th, 15th, 16th century buildings, and the old vicarage is here. Probably well modernised now, and that may well be plastic weatherboarding, but I'm not going to go and touch it to find out. But there's the chimney, and that building originates from the 16th century. It might even have had a thatched roof to start with, and then moving on next to it and dating from the 18th century is the old post office. And this is basically the centre of Brede village. Starting to get rather busy now. There is the village sign. I don't know if that's a new one or an old one, to be honest with you. I know a lot of village signs are new, but and the old style phone box. And a couple of interesting buildings there. These are the older buildings, and probably the oldest part of Brede village. And with that, I am going down to the bridge this time. Now I'm down at Brede Bridge, and I'm looking back towards the church, and I'm going to turn my camera around, otherwise the cars will all think I'm looking at them. I apologise that it's going to get a bit noisy. Unfortunately, this time of year I have to come out later to film, but I'll go onto the bridge in a minute when it's safe to do so. We're down by the River Brede now, and you can see the flood banks that have been built up over the years. It's hard to believe there were wharfs here at one time. No, I didn't say wolves, I said wharfs. One over there, and another one just on the north side there. And that is where the little tramway come down to. The coal was unloaded and taken by the railway, which from what I can see of the maps went up more or less across that field there. And in that first clump of trees you see, the other side of the field, it appears that there was probably a little engine shed in there. And then it made its way to the west along the line of the hedge at the top of the field, and on to the waterworks. There must have been about a mile, just over a mile along there. I have seen a drawing of the locomotive. It's a funny little thing. It looks more like something out of Roland Emmett's Cloud Cuckoo Land, the Oyster Creek and Far Tottering Railway, because it had one of these very tall fronts in front of the driver with the spectacle glasses, and then a little bit of metal over the top. Nothing to the sides and nothing to the rear. So it must have been very wet in the middle of winter. But I say, that lasted from 1895 until 1935. It's incredible. And then after that, coal was still delivered on barges. What am I saying? In 1928, the last of the deliveries by river was made. Now, by that time, we'd got the Udimore sluice, which was controlling the levels. So you could only get 2 ships up here in a fortnight. Twice a fortnight you could have a delivery, and that ceased in 1928. After which coal was delivered by road to a little yard just the other side of, well, just where that bus has gone by. And there was a coal merchant's there until 70s, 80s, maybe even a little later than that. But the railway closed in 1937 when coal was started to be delivered by road, as I said, to the pumping station. Now, what of the River Brede? Well, I've spoken several times in videos about the Great Storm of 1287, and it had a far-reaching effect on the whole of this area. In actual fact, they built a great dam, which they called the Dam, across the Brede Valley from Micklesham to what is now Float Farm. And that was over 1,000 yards long, excuse me, with a sluice gate in the middle to allow for navigation. Now, when are we going now? We're coming back now, 15th century sometime. It was decided that to help the navigation of the River Brede, it would be dredged out, rebuilt, and a completely new navigation channel was built, which involved the knocking down of the dam. And this new channel was something like 165 yards wide. I mean, it's 500 foot nearly. Can you imagine it? Which would almost take up the whole of this flat area. I don't know whether that wide channel came quite this far up. It certainly was about 5 miles long, I know that much. But as I say, I don't think the flow of the Brede was ever strong enough to really prevent silting up, and I guess over the years that's what happened. I don't think these flood banks have been here since the 15th or 16th century or later. I have a feeling that a lot of this was done after the 1960 floods, consequential with the normal sort of water management levels. There's sluices all over the place now, there's drainage ditches all over the place now, and where the river is silted up, it's been reduced to very much smaller than it used to be. But this is how it is today, and yes, it can flood. I've been over this bridge and you can't see the fields here because they're just covered in water. But the bridge itself, now if you read Wikipedia, you can't always rely 100% on Wikipedia, but it's generally fairly reliable, and at least it will give you a clue where you can go to do other research. But Wikipedia says this bridge was rebuilt in the 1940s by the military so that they could take tanks across it. Well, I'm sorry, I don't go with that, and I'll tell you the reason why. Because I can remember coming across here in the 1950s, late 50s, on a bus, and it was a humpback bridge. And there are others of my generation who also remember travelling across here when it was a humpback bridge. And if you look at the style of fencing on there, and you recall my visit south of the Oxney, Blackwall Bridge, New Bridge, all these bridges seem to have been redone in the 1960s to a similar design, probably as part of the flood controls. And so I'm sorry, but I can quite believe the military built a bridge here. They probably built a Bailey Bridge, but they certainly didn't build this bridge. Now then, I'm just wondering if I can safely get up onto the bridge. It's a bit unfortunate that there is no footpath leading to it, but I can certainly. Now, Clive Vale Angling Club. So there's obviously fish here. Now, water lilies. Is there a little flow? There is. It looks like a small flow, but it really is hard to believe, isn't it, that there were wharfs here, and the river at this point was probably the end of the that new channel. So the 165 yards wide would have gone straight down through the middle there. Probably not got any further than this bridge, because the bridge was quite a narrow affair. And you see, going the other way, it's now very quickly got quite narrow. But as I said in my visit to Selscombe, and probably even up to 1928, when that was the final piece of navigation, you might have got a small craft as far as Selscombe Bridge, because there was some commercial traffic up there. There was an ironworks here for some time during the Tudor period, so cannon and that were also sent from here. Groceries would go to and fro, and that's probably what the main traffic would be up to Selscombe. There is movement in that water. Wait a minute. Where am I looking? See? I wonder if those are... Pond skaters, water boatmen. Certainly a lot of life in that little bit, isn't there, eh? And if I just pan round and look up the road, you'll see the entrance to what was the old coal yard up there. And looking across the fields to the other side, a pumping station, although we can't see it from here. It's down over there somewhere, so a good mile to a mile and a half away. But anyway, I'm going to get across to the safe side of the bridge. And once more have a look to see what we can see down there. Not much sign of life. And there, the river goes to the north. That's probably Icklesham, that's on the hillside up there. And the next bridge down will be the ferry bridge at Winchelsea. Not many bridges on the Brede, 5 in all. I think I've visited 10 on the Rother, 6, 7 and 8 on the Tillingham, and this is the second on the Brede. Then this ferry bridge is the third, the Winchelsea Main Road Bridge is the fourth, and they will be finishing at the road to Rye Harbour, which goes over the Brede in Rye when I bring everything together. So we ain't got long to go now, and I hope at least one morning that I might get some more decent sunshine perhaps. I know the sun's up there, but on this very gloomy morning I think perhaps it's time that I said goodbye and went home for my breakfast. I hope you've enjoyed this little look around the small section of Brede and the River Brede and its bridge. We'll see you next time.